Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Pitch podcast. Today we are joined with guest Georgia. How are you, Georgia?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm good, thank you. So this is in support of my new project, which is aiming to create a pack for every girl within the school football club at my school. As I have noticed that they do not have or cannot buy the necessary items that would mean they can play football without any worries or barriers. I have 8 months left at school, so it would obviously mean the absolute world to be able to do this, especially in honour of the people like Mary Ups and other individuals that have created the game how it is today turned and created me into the person that I am, obviously. So we start off by asking all of our guests the question of how your football journey started, where did it kind of like begin, and how has it led you to the person that you are now?
Okay, that's a good one. So, I've grown up like my whole family are football mad, like football crazy. So like from a very, very young age, it was always like, going to the games with my dad or just be kicking a football around the park with my dad or like just anyone in my family or my friends in general. And then I was quite late to starting actually like playing and doing training and stuff because like it was just something that like no one really did. Like none of my friends were really into it, that kind of thing. So I think I was maybe about 7 or 8 when I first actually started playing for one of the youth teams in my area. Um, I stayed with that for a bit, just playing for basically the fun of it. Like I know I enjoyed it. It was just, it was so good to just kind of, come home from like school or like a long day. Like I know being a kid is not that difficult, but it was nice just to kind of always have that outlet of just, I can go play football or just go training or anything like that. And then yeah, I carried that on all through school pretty much. Was part of like my school teams. Um, and then yeah, kind of went for a little bit of a phase where I kind of stopped training a little bit, stopped playing. I still went to go watch all the games, and it was more recently that I did start actually playing again and stuff. But yeah, it's basically just come from a long chain of everyone in my family always just playing, always been involved, always going to the games, and yeah.
Amazing. It's always great to hear about someone's journey going into football, especially starting at a young age. During your time at school and now in general, have you ever felt the need to hide your passion for football because the fact you did not feel like you fitted in?
Yeah, I'm quite fortunate to like be at like a good age where I think no one necessarily cared kind of too much about if like you were playing football. I know it's like when I was little, like I do remember like when I was probably about 8 or 9, like it was kind of me and this one other girl that kind of was playing football like for our school team, and we were the only girls that were playing. But it wasn't like anyone necessarily saw us as like, you know, different or not included into this because of like being a girl, which was quite nice to kind of have that because obviously like growing up, obviously heard like a lot of other people's stories about, the struggles they went through to, enjoy the game and stuff like that. Yeah, there's not a specific point I could pin out that I really have felt like, it's a man's game and that other from what stories I've heard. So I'm quite fortunate about that. It got a bit more difficult in secondary school because I think as much as we are like we're all of the age of when it's more acceptable for like people to kind of do what they want and all of that, you're still going to get the group of guys that are like, why are you playing football? Like what you want about that, that's our thing kind of thing. But which is a shame because I think I definitely would have carried it on a lot longer, and I definitely probably would have really been more like, what's it like, passionate about the sport and involved in the sport at that time had they not have kind of put that kind of dampener on it. But yeah, other than that, it's quite nice to have grown up in this kind of generation where slowly but surely women were more and more like involved in the game and stuff. And obviously, recent years has been so great to see it fully take up to where it is now as well.
Definitely. And you mentioned about it being noticed as a male sport. Like demonstrated within the project, how important is it that young girls have these role models publicised both inside and outside of school?
I think it's so important because like it it gives them someone to kind of relate to a lot more. Like, it's great even like, being like young like a while ago and kind of still having role models in like the men that are playing the sport, but it's so much more important to have that like the female role models that are so much more publicized, like and all of that because you're seeing them more, you're hearing about them more, like you're hearing their stories more, which is obviously giving them something to relate to. And obviously like they can then take that and think like, well, they made it, like so can I. And I think that's definitely like something I wish I had grown up as more. As much as there was female teams at the time, they just weren't spoken about as much. So I think for now it's so great that, you know, the younger generation do have these people to look up to, because, you know, they can relate to them. And yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a difference the last couple of years in the fact that we are having more role models, and women's football now is being brought to light. Why do you think it is so important that girls have equal access for football and for sport in general throughout their time at school?
Um, I mean, like, sorry, I'm so bad at like kind of phrasing things, but I think it's important because, like, for a start, I mean, it means that like everyone feels involved in something. Like, you know, there's not like a singled out crowd, you know, like, and it builds more of like a confidence in the girl that they can just kind of do something that they want to do. And it's good that so many more like schools and that are like really trying to push for like the women's sport, not just in football, you know, in every sport. And I think, you know, like football being the main one that's taken off over the years, like the last couple of years, is really great for that. Like, you know, these young girls can obviously get involved. They're more active. They're happier because they're doing something they enjoy. You know, they're not just like trying to hide who they are, which is so important, because I can't think about the amount of girls that probably growing up couldn't do this and was like trying to kind of be someone different to who they are. So it's definitely, you know, good for like their confidence and like what they want to do and stuff like that.
Obviously, mentioning the difference since the Euros, have you noticed a difference in participation, whether that be within football, but also within like being a fan and going to the matches and supporting the teams?
Yeah, I mean, starting with like playing and obviously like different teams and stuff. It's definitely been insane. Like I think before Euros there wasn't many, like specifically in my area there wasn't a lot of like women's teams at all. There was mixed teams, but there wasn't really many formed like women's teams. After Euros now, like I think the league in my area has almost tripled in the amount of teams that are now playing, like in like even in like women's sports and in the youth groups, which is insane. I think that's so good. And obviously you see it all the time, like in the news and stuff, that it's taken off. Like there's so many more teams, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but I know that there was a massive number of an increase in teams. And as a fan as well, going to the games pre-Euros, like you would go to like a game and there would be like probably not even 100 of you like stood watching like your team play for like a lot of teams. And I remember like even there was one game I went to that was played at Emirates. Like this was maybe just after Euros, so I guess you couldn't really count as pre-Euros, but there was literally like it was still a big number, more than what there was before, but a little like group of us just sat in one corner of Emirates Stadium. To now go like recently over the last few months and see like the insane crowds and like the stadium being like almost full, or like even just having that like bottom tier just completely full was insane.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And Arsenal are 100% a club that has grown so much since the Euros, and seeing sold out Emirates stadiums against Manchester United last year, against Spurs last year, and being able to have a number of games now being played there at the Emirates Stadium as well is so amazing to see. Leading on to the question, how do you think we can increase participation and then to increase the audience than it is other teams other than the Arsenals, the Chelseas, and the cities that can have the participation rate and have the increasing in fans to play more games at the men's grounds as well?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm not the kind of person that's going to know everything that goes on behind the scenes, but I think, you know, for Arsenal, I think like, I mean, they did have a lot more people going to their games to start off with, and I think like what helped was just everyone spreading the word. Like after Euros, like people were like, oh, like come down and watch the game with me. Like you watch them in the Euros, like all of that. So that definitely helped them. I think for clubs now, it's just important to like stick with it, stick with like, you know, putting it all over their social medias, really trying to draw people in. Um, I think they could definitely like promote a lot more, like making it so that because at the women's games, I find they're promoting the men's games. And then I feel like with the men's games, they don't really promote the women's games. And I think that would help so much, is that, you know, a lot more people are going to these men's games who probably have like daughters and like, you know, even like sisters or anything that are interested in football, and be like, look, why don't you come down to like a women's game with me? Not saying that it should be like women's go to the women's games or like men should go to the men's games, but I think that will help then increase the audiences, and then that's when you can start being like everyone's just going to go to both games, and you support the club as a whole and not just the men's or the women's team. That's something that obviously every single team is really striving for. I think the WSL has definitely taken off over the last few months. Like, I know that Chelsea have had some really great like records beaten with their like crowds and stuff. And I know that like Man United and Man City and that are also getting there slowly. I think it's especially important now for like the championship table teams as well to really be pushing that and just getting the word out there and trying to get the kind of their men's teams side of their clubs to really drive the kind of women's side and push these audiences and get those people in. The more people that go watch the game, the more people that might eventually want to play, and the more people that are going to get involved that way. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That does make sense. And obviously, pre-Euros, obviously there wasn't this mass publicized in role models and like the games obviously being shown on TV more now. If you were speaking to your younger self, or there's someone listening to this podcast now that is maybe struggling with their passion of football like I was, what advice would you give them?
Good question. That's made me think a little bit. Like, it's not often I'm like reminiscing on the past kind of thing and thinking like, what would I actually tell myself? I think the main thing is just stay true to yourself and stick with it 100%. Like, at the end of the day, like, people are always going to have their opinion, but what matters is your happiness and following what you want to do. So that's definitely one thing, is just 100% just staying true to yourself. Another thing is just take every opportunity that you can, because now they're like, especially speaking to like a younger audience, like, take every single opportunity that you can. Like, even if it's just the opportunity to like play a match for your school team and they've noticed that you enjoy it, like, take that and do what you can with that, because then that's when you're going to, meet more people that play for this team, that team, and then that's, how you're going to get more involved and more with it. So 100% is just, yeah, stay true to yourself and take every opportunity that you can.
Yeah, I love that response as well, because you see so many times that like people might not feel like they fit in, or that they'll be accepted in themselves if they go into the sport. And I'm hoping that that's going to now change progressively over time, and we have seen a big change the last couple of years, especially. What makes football so special and important to you?
I think there's so many factors. I mean, like, the first main thing is just being like the community, like the amount of friends that you make, and like both playing and supporting. Like, that's like so nice. You're just meeting so many more people with a similar interest now. Um, Also just like um, gosh, like uh, I feel like my head's going off on a tangent when I'm trying to say these, but um, like it's just like nice to kind of just be in like a nice like environment, enjoying what I like love, and feeling the happiness of like going to the games and feeling the joy when your team win, and kind of going through the emotions, like, when your team lose and all of that. Like, it's just nice to be kind of surrounded by people with all the same passion and doing and watching something that you enjoy.
The women's game has grown massively over the past 2 years, which we can see looking back on it now. Um, but if you were looking in the future, 5 or 10 years, how would you want or expect to see women's football in the future?
I would hope that, like, in 5 years' time, I would hope that it would be so much more equal than what it is like now. Like you said, it's come so far already. I think it would just be so good in 5 years' time to kind of sit there and like not have that like bit of stigma that is still like, this is women's football aimed at women. This is men's football. This is aimed at men. Like, there's still that divide straight down the middle. Like, women's football is getting great publicity, but at what point? Because there's still that divide straight down the middle of men's football, women's football. So it'd be nice to kind of see the two more interlinked, if that's kind of a way of putting it. Also seeing the kind of like, at the moment, like in men's football, if you're in like even from League One, like through like Championship level to Premier League, they're kind of all still recognised clubs, and like, still get like a lot of fans and still get a lot of recognition. Whereas in women's football, you've kind of got WSL, which is like, the top like 5 teams, like everyone's kind of going for, everyone knows about, and then the lower down like the pyramid you get, like the lesser these teams are known. So I think it'd be nice to kind of everyone's kind of got the recognition they deserve for what they're doing. So that would be good. And yeah, just that's definitely one main thing, like in terms of that. And I think also it will just be good to like have more stuff that's available for girls to like really push their like, you know, they want to go into a career in football, whether that even be playing or like the media side of it or anything like that, because I know that at the moment it's still so dominated by men. Like playing like academies or grassroots is still so men heavy, coaching is so men heavy, like, or man heavy should I say, and media is so man heavy. So it'd be good to see that in 5 years time that again it's an equal playing field for all sides of like football basically.
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree, because obviously this is the reason why I'm doing my project, is to make sure that the girls in my school, but also hopefully it will reach out further to other schools to hopefully take inspiration, is to recognize these girls are breaking barriers by just turning up to a football session. Like, they're going against the stigmas that are placed on them. However, there is still that lack of equality and that lack of access that needs to be there. And hopefully, if I can put the packs together, it will just show them that they're being noticed, if that makes sense, like they're seen. And I think that's really important. Obviously 8 months left is scary, but if I can leave the school with them knowing that they can play football without any worries, without any barriers, then I think it would mean the world to me. It really would. But thank you for joining us. It's been lovely to hear about your story, and it's been lovely to hear about your individual experiences.
Yeah, of course, no worries, it's been good.
Thank you.
No worries.